Hey everybody. So I want to talk about the St. Louis Blues today, who kind of quietly are off to a fantastic start this season, coming off their Stanley Cup win last year. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to quickly remind everyone to please hit that like button and give this video a thumbs up. It greatly helps out the channel. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all my hockey content this season and all year round. So, the St. Louis Blues, there has not been a Stanley Cup hangover for this St. Louis Blues team at all. And that's something that we don't always see, but we do see a lot from time to time. And it makes sense. A lot of times teams that go to the Stanley Cup finals, especially the winning team from the Stanley Cup, struggled to start the next season, and that's where the Stanley Cup hangover comes from. And it's because they play, they play 20 plus more games than everyone else. Their off season is 2 months shorter than teams that don't make the playoffs. And even shorter than teams that do make the playoffs. They have the shortest off season out of anybody. And they have less time to regroup and recover in the offseason. Their offseason's usually busier because they won the Stanley Cup. And we just, a lot of times, all these things come together, and Stanley Cup winning teams struggle at the beginning of the next season, and we call it the Stanley Cup hangover. And oftentimes we do see it. Not all the time, but a lot. And we are absolutely not seeing it at all this year with the St. Louis Blues, which is really interesting. St. Louis has quietly won 6 games in a row. People really aren't talking a whole lot about this team, and I'm not sure why. I think it's because of how good they were the second half of last season. It kind of just feels like a continuation of that. But to come off a Stanley Cup win, playing really heavy, hard playoff games, long series against the Sharks and Boston and Dallas, and all of St. Louis's series last year were long series. Winnipeg, even in the first round, nothing was easy for the Blues last season, and they had to really grind it out in the playoffs, and they did that all the way to a Stanley Cup victory in Game 7. And then they had the short off season. They played a ton of heavy minutes in the playoffs, and I kind of thought going into this season that, yeah, they'd be a good team again for sure, but I thought they'd probably get off to a bit of a slow start, but that hasn't been the case at all. 11-3-3, 6 in a row now in the win column, 8-2 in their last 10 games. They are just absolutely rolling right now, and they've taken the lead in the Central Division by 5 points over Nashville. Nashville and Colorado both got off to really good starts this season, but then have kind of, I don't want to say faded, because they're still, both teams are 9-5-2 and in very good shape, but they've dropped off a little bit in their play, and St. Louis has really gotten better in their last 5-6 games or so. So they've launched themselves to the top of the Western Conference, and they look like a full-on Stanley Cup threat once again. And there's been no drop-off in their play, no issues, no hangover at all. And they're all doing this without Vladimir Tarasenko, who I think is their best goal scorer, and he is not in the lineup. He's going to miss most, if not all, of the rest of this season with an injury. Hopefully he can come back in the playoffs. It's going to be at least 5 months for him. Getting him back for the postseason would be a huge boost for this Blues team that's trying to repeat. But even without Tarasenko, they are still finding ways to win games. They're playing well. They're not a huge offensive team. They don't score a ton of goals, but they win games. They play good defensive hockey, and they find ways to win. And you look at the Blues, what's going on this season, it's quite frankly, their star players are stepping up. Their star players are leading this team to where they need to be. Ryan O'Reilly has 17 points in 17 games. He's their only point-per-game player so far. I would say O'Reilly's probably their best all-around player, however. So he's leading the way. Braden Shen leads the team in goals with 10 goals and 16 points in 17 games. He's doing a really good job. Just signed that big, huge contract extension, living up to it already. David Perron is having a really nice season, 16 points in 17 games, and kind of split between 7 goals and 9 assists. So he's playing a good all-around game. Jaden Schwartz is having a really nice year, 14 points through 17 games. Alex Pietrangelo has 14 points in 17 games as a defenseman. He is obviously their number one defenseman, their third, big star on the back end. He's got 6 goals already as a D-man. He's really done a nice job. Tarasenko had 10 points in his first 10 games before he got injured, but now he's probably not going to play. He's not going to play again, at least I would say, until probably April at the earliest. So losing him is definitely a loss, but this team has found ways to continue to put wins together. And, they're getting good secondary scoring from guys like Sammy Blais and Tyler Bozak, who have 8 points each. Colton Parayko's got 8 points as a defenseman. Justin Falk's got 6 points since he's come over from the Carolina Hurricanes. This team is just, doing what it takes to get W's on the board. And it's kind of been, watching them this year has been pretty similar to how they did things in the second half of the season last year. And they don't have the offensive juggernaut lineup of a team, say, like Tampa Bay or Toronto, and teams with that high-octane offense who are going to score like 5-6 goals a game, you would think. They win differently. They win by playing strong defense and keeping the puck out of their own net. And you look at their goaltending numbers this year, a lot of people had questions about Jordan Binnington going into this season. Was last year just a fluke? Or did he just get hot at the right time and come in and they caught fire in a bottle and took advantage of it? Or is Jordan Binnington the real deal? Well, so far in his second season in the NHL, Jordan Binnington is the real deal. 13 games started. He's 8-2-3 with a .921 save percentage and a 2.43 goals against average. Those are top 10 numbers for an NHL goaltender. And he's off to a really, really good start, and he's got 8 wins already. And Binnington looks like the goaltender he was last season and in the playoffs for St. Louis. And they're going to win a lot of games if Jordan Binnington continues to play that way. Jake Allen as the backup, not so hot. He is 3-1. He's won 3 out of his 4 starts. However, his save percentage is only .882, and his goals against is 3.29. So Jake Allen does still look like a backup goaltender and certainly not a guy that I would want starting. But Binnington, obviously, you can see the game started ratio. Binnington started 13. Jake Allen's only started 4. So clearly, Jordan Binnington is the guy in St. Louis. He is their go-to. He is their number one netminder. And right now, he's playing like one of the top goalies in the league. And as long as that continues and St. Louis plays good team defense in front of them, this team's going to continue to win. So I have been very impressed with the St. Louis Blues so far this season. They look like a serious threat to go on another deep playoff run. They look like they could very well end up winning the Western Conference. Their best players are being their best players. O'Reilly, Shen, Pietrangelo, Perron, Schwartz. Those guys are leading this team to where they need to be. Jordan Binnington has looked outstanding in goal, and things are just rolling right now for St. Louis. So 6 wins in a row, 11-3-3 on the season. Absolutely no Stanley Cup hangover for the St. Louis Blues this year. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.